In this video, we're going to continue with integers in the order of operations. So let's start with problem D. We're going to use a highlighter to see what operations we need to perform. So here we have subtraction. We have another subtraction. Notice that's in parentheses, so we'll do that first. And then we have an exponent. So there's 3 operations we need to do. Okay. So we'll start with the operation that's in the parentheses, which is 2 minus 3. So I'm going to copy down the rest of the problem. 7 minus, well, 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So I find the difference. Okay, actually we should rewrite this as addition. 2 plus negative 3. Okay, so the signs are different, so we find the difference, which is 1, and 3 is negative. Its absolute value is larger, so our result is negative 1. Put that in parentheses and square. Okay. So even though that this is in parentheses, there's no operation in there. We're just using it to show that we're squaring the number negative 1. So next we can do exponents. So we want to find negative 1 squared. Now let's do this on the side. Now remember, negative 1 squared means 2 factors of negative 1. And negative 1 times negative 1, a negative times a negative is positive. So 1 times 1 is 1. Our result is positive. So we have 7 minus 1. So we perform the exponent, and our last step is subtraction, and 7 minus 1 is 6. Let's look at the next one. We'll highlight our operations. Well, here we have a square. Notice negative 3 is in parentheses, but there's not an operation in there. Here we have a subtraction. Here, these are next to each other, so there's implied multiplication. And here we have addition. So this is implied multiplication. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 operations to perform. So following our order of operations, again, there's parentheses, but there's no operations in the parentheses. See here how we had subtraction? Here it's just a number, so there's no parentheses to perform. So we're going to do exponents first. There is one exponent. Let's underline this, and we're going to do this on the side. Negative 3 squared means 2 factors of negative 3. And 3 times 3 is 9, and a negative times a negative is positive. So our result is 9. So I'm going to write the 9, copy down the rest of the problem. So now we have subtraction, multiplication, and addition. We'll notice multiplication comes before addition or subtraction. So let's do this multiplication. Okay. So now this is a subtraction sign. Okay, so we're going to leave the subtraction sign here and carry it down. We're just going to find 4 times negative 3, which is negative 12. And we're going to see how this works out. So 9 minus 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. I'm putting that in parentheses. We're subtracting a negative, so I want to make sure we can distinguish the subtraction from the negative, plus 2. Okay, so now all we have left is subtraction and addition. We're going to perform them from left to right. Since we have signed numbers, let's start by rewriting this as all addition. So this is already addition, but instead of 9 minus negative 12, I'm going to write this as 9 plus, the opposite of negative 12 is positive 12, and then plus 2. And notice this looks a lot simpler now that we have it written this way. So now we'll perform these from left to right. And actually, when it's all addition, you can perform them in any order you want, but left to right always works too. So 9 plus 12 is 21. Bring down the plus 2, and 21 plus 2 is 23. And that is our final result. And now we have one last problem. This might look frightening, okay, because we have the fraction symbol, but remember this just means division. So let's highlight our operations. So here, these are next to each other. This means multiplication. We have addition. This fraction symbol is division, and here we have a subtraction. Okay. Now remember that division usually comes before addition or subtraction, but when the division bar goes all the way across like this, we're going to do everything on top following the order of operations, everything on bottom following the order of operations, and the last thing we do is this division of the two quantities. Okay, so let's start with the top. The real name of the top is numerator, but I'm just going to call it top. Or we could think about this as the dividend. That's the name we called it when we were dividing. Okay. So here's the top. We have multiplication and addition. We're going to do multiplication first. 5 times negative 2. Well, 5 times 2 is 10. And we have a positive times a negative, so our result is negative. So we have negative 10 plus 4. Now we have addition. So we're adding a positive and a negative, so we take the difference of their absolute values. So 10 minus 4 is 6. The sign of the number with the larger absolute value is going to be 10, and its sign is negative. So the top is negative 6. And I'm going to circle that instead of boxing it. This is our first part of our result. Now in the bottom, we have 3 minus 5, and you may want to think of this as 3 plus negative 5. Okay. So we're subtracting positive numbers, but since 5 is larger, our result is actually going to be negative. And if you rewrite them as addition, the signs are different. So you take the difference. 5 minus 3 is 2, but 3 minus 5 is not 2. Since the absolute value of negative 5 is larger, our result is going to be negative. So our bottom result is negative 2. Now we'll just call this last step Q for quotient. So the top, when it's all simplified, is negative 6. The bottom, when it's all simplified, is negative 2. So our last step is this division. Okay, remember this just means negative 6 divided by negative 2. So we divide their absolute values. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then since they're both negative, the signs are the same. So the answer is actually positive 3. And that is our final result.